Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of Amanat, Asimah in Yemen. And I'm sure you're thinking, where is it in Yemen? You can see Yemen's right here. Where is it? You can see the other areas that I've already covered in Yemen. You can see Amanat Asimah. Well, that is because that is the name for the region that contains the majority of the city of Sana'a, which is the capital of Yemen. We'll get into that later. Confusingly enough, the area surrounding it is the Sana'a district, but the heart of the city, the district, is named Amanat al-Asimah. Kind of reminds me of like how there's London and the city of London within London. Within the Sana'a region is Amanat al-Asimah, and that's where all of the official government things happen and where the old city of Sana'a is located, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So let me pull that up for you. Let's see. The old city of Sana'a. And if you've never seen pictures of old Sana'a or of the ancient architecture of Yemen, you're in for a treat, because in my opinion, ancient Yemeni buildings are some of the most beautiful in the world, and the ones in Sana'a are the most beautiful of the beautiful buildings. So let's read about the old city of Sana'a. It says, situated in a mountain valley at an altitude of 2,200 meters, Sana'a has been inhabited for more than 2,500 years. In the 7th and 8th centuries, the city became a major center for the propagation of Islam. This religious and political heritage can be seen in the 103 mosques, 14 hammams, and over 6,000 houses, all built before the 11th century. Sana'a's many storied tower houses built of rammed earth, I guess it's called pise, add to the beauty of the site. Let's take a look at these buildings. Let's see all, and take a look. So beautiful. It's almost fairy tale like. Look at this picture. Look at this. Just almost like mythical. It's so like unreal style of beauty, where it looks so old and earthy, but also like it's been decorated with frosting. It is a gorgeous place. Sadly, as you can see here, I think this kind of demonstrates the sort of wear and tear that this place has undergone, but that's no fault of the city or UNESCO. I believe this is a property listed as in danger. We'll get into it in the history section. Let me find another pretty one. We'll look at more on Google Earth too. Google Earth has even better pictures, but like, that's so pretty. These buildings are so beautiful. But like I said, we'll get more into it later in the video, looking at pictures. So there's not much to talk about in terms of geography because it's a city center. Like it said, it is in a very mountainous valley. You can see this whole section of Yemen along the Tiamat coastal region is very mountainous, and Sana'a's right in the middle. We'll talk about why that's important for today in a bit. Let's start way back, because it's believed that the city of Sana'a was founded sometime between the 1st and 2nd centuries BCE, And the mythology is that it was founded by Shem, who was a son of Noah. And I learned through researching this that the word Semitic or Semite comes from Shem. Interesting. I'd never thought about that before. But side note, I thought that was interesting. The city was a very important center of commerce and trade, mainly in the trade of frankincense, which was a very, very valuable tree resin used as a fragrance. It's still really popular today, but at the time it was like one of the hottest, most expensive commodities to have. And those trees only grow in the south of the Arabian Peninsula here. So a lot of trading happened here. It was also used as a military base or military stronghold that could operate by going out anywhere in the region and being centered right there. Islam was introduced in the year 632, which, if you know your Islamic history, isn't long after the Prophet Muhammad started to send out envoys across the peninsula spreading Islam. It was a big center, like it said on the UNESCO website, a place that once Islam was established here, then they sent out envoys to spread Islam and became a place where people could come to learn more about Islam. Various Muslim dynasties ruled over the region. I won't get into the details, but one of the more important ones was the Ayyubids, who conquered the area in 1175. If you've heard of that, it's one of the famous Muslim dynasties of, like, I suppose like the Middle Ages, we would say. They ruled from Baghdad, or not so much Baghdad, more like Aleppo, Damascus, up there. This was the time of Saladin, the great warrior that fought against the Christians in the Crusades. And he spread his influence all the way to Egypt and down the peninsula, including here in Sana'a. The Ayyubids, though, did not rule the area from Sana'a. They ruled mainly from Taiz and later Aden down here. So this area wasn't as important to them as other peoples would. So eventually the Zaydis would move in 1323. The Zaydis are important in Yemeni history. They were a faction of Islam ruled by emirs, and they just kind of had their own thing going, ruling mainly in the desert areas of what's now Yemen, down in the Hadramaut. They ruled the area until the Mamluks took over in 1517. The Mamluks would open the door for the Ottomans to come into Sana'a by 1547. The Zaydis would eventually recapture in 1629 and ruled the area for a long time until the Ottomans would regroup in 1872 and invade once again. And this was kind of the first period of modernization in Sana'a. Pretty much at that point it was just those gorgeous, tall buildings that you saw on the tablet. They added things like schools and hospitals and whatever was modern for the time that weren't like the clay houses and things. A very important figure comes up at this point in history. His name was Imam Yahya, a Zaydi Imam. He would take over Sana'a by 1904, and he essentially was pretty much one of the founding fathers of modern-day Yemen. implementing a Zaidi kind of lifestyle and creating what was to become North Yemen. We'll talk about South Yemen in a minute. But North Yemen existed pretty much by the fall of the Ottomans by 1918. And in 1948, Imam Yahya was assassinated. His son took over, started implementing reforms, and he made Sana'a the capital of North Yemen. It was essentially a Zaidi kingdom at that point, whereas the south of Yemen was ruled by the British. It was a British protectorate. So very different rules for the north and south. The North Yemen Civil War broke out in 1962 between people who believed it should stay a Zaidi kingdom and those who believed it should be a democratic republic. It ended by 1970. The people fighting for a republic won. And this is when we have the second wave of more modernization in Sana'a, adding things like roads and let's see what else, like street lights, the modern amenities that we have in cities today that did not exist in Sana'a before that. Yemen would finally be united in the early 1990s. South Yemen, once they were independent from the British, became like communist, Marxist for a hot minute until that stopped working. They united with North Yemen after a lot of very wildly successful talks, actually. And Sana'a was the capital of the unified Yemen, mainly because North Yemen was a lot stronger politically, economically, etc., than South Yemen, which was kind of collapsing. So Sana'a became the capital. Things would change drastically, not just in Sana'a, but in all of Yemen in 2011. This was the time of the Arab Spring, when many Arab countries were rising up in protest against their governments, whether they be corrupt or dictatorial, etc., etc. The people here were mainly displeased. Was it unpleased? Is that a word? I don't know. Displeased with the current president of Yemen, Ali Abdullah Saleh, who had taken over not long before that and was considered a very weak president. So people started protesting against him. It became quite turbulent, and eventually Saleh was forced to announce a resignation. His government was ousted. He rescinded that once he was safely out of Sana'a, said, taking that back, I'm not resigning. And conflict ensued between people who wanted Saleh out and people who wanted to keep Saleh in. A huge battle erupted in the city of Sana'a. And once the dust settled from that, the people who were against Saleh won out. Saleh fled to Aden, the city where he was from, and began a government in exile. So when I say kind of hesitantly that Sana'a is the capital of Yemen, that's a little debated because the official government of Yemen is currently being operated out of Aden, but there's kind of been no declaration of the capital officially being moved. It's still technically Sana'a. During all of this very turbulent conflict, a group known as the Houthis rose up, which were very against Saleh and wanting to take over Yemen and implement a different government. And they were actually very successful and are still very strong today. They invaded and took over Sana'a in 2014, which obviously the government in exile was very displeased about. and asked for help from other countries, and they found that help in Saudi Arabia. Other countries like Qatar and the UAE, I believe, also joined in, but Saudi Arabia was leading the fight to help the Yemeni government in exile, and they started launching air attacks on Sana'a in 2015, which is pretty devastating to the inhabitants of the city. It was a very unstable time because not only that, they were not receiving a lot of aid. Food and water was being sent mainly to the port of Mocha, you can see down here, to help out people in the Houthi-controlled areas who had lost the ability to, go shopping at the grocery store because they're all empty. Things like that. And the other one was to get safe drinking water. Sana'a operates their water system on aquifers. I forgot to mention during that second modernization period when they were adding plumbing and sewage and all kinds of pipelines, it was very difficult to get under the city and operate them correctly. These aquifers are beginning to dry up, and getting water to the people here was a huge issue. So that became very devastating. There was a lot of starvation and a lot of illness in Sana'a at this time, just because they weren't receiving any of the aid that was coming into Yemen. It took a long time for it to trickle down through to get to Sana'a. There was another big battle in Sana'a in 2017 when Salah's supporters tried to retake the city. There were talks, they failed, conflict began, and actually Salah was killed during this conflict. Which raises the question, what happens next with the government? The good news is that talks between the official Yemeni government in exile and the Houthis have been happening in 2023, and they're actually going really well, to the point that it is possible that we could see an official end to this conflict. They're in a ceasefire as of now, as of the past couple of years. The times during COVID were a little iffy. There was a little bit of back and forth. But for the most part, for the past 3 years or so, it's been very quiet. And hopefully these talks will resolve soon, because the people of Sana'a really do need help. Because like I said, those aquifers are drying up. And as of right now, they're expected to be completely dry by 2030. And Sana'a will become the world's first capital city to run out of water. So the main aid coming into Sana'a at the moment is just tanks of water. It's hard because they're in the mountain valleys, so it's hard to transport water. You can't really fly a lot of water in because water's heavy. You can't really bring that into an airport on a plane, So it's very hard to get water into the city. It's slowly but surely happening, and an end to this conflict would greatly help out the efforts. It's tricky because if you try to help out Sana'a at this point, if you're a political entity or a world leader and want to help out Sana'a, you're basically saying that you believe the Houthi government is legitimate, which can be very tense in this part of the world. So, sadly, it's all very political when it shouldn't be. The fact is that people could be dying of thirst, dying of hunger because of that. And that should come first before any political mumbo-jumbo. But sadly, it doesn't. And that is pretty much where we are today in Sana'a. As of right now, right this moment in 2023 that I'm filming this, things are pretty okay. They have been way worse. They could be a lot better, but right now, it's much better than it was 10 years ago. It's much better than it was 5 years ago. Things are kind of looking up, but the water and just aid in general, in terms of doctors, in terms of healthy foods, that can be very dire very quickly if we don't stay on top of it. So, okay, my phone just overheated, so that's a sign that it's time to stop rambling and to get to the Google Earth section, which I'm really excited to show you. So here you can see the outlines of what's considered Amanat al-Asimah. There's Sana'a city there. And let me zoom out so you can see exactly where we are in the world if you don't know. So here's the Arabian Peninsula. There's Iran and the Middle East there. There's Africa down here. And at the southern end of the peninsula is Yemen. And you can see the mountains cutting through here. And we can zoom in on the city of Sana'a. Let's take a look at the slideshow first. Let's look at some cool sights. This is the picture I'm obsessed with. This looks like it's miniatures. It looks like it's from a fantasy book or something. It does not look real at all. This place looks like absolute magic. It is so, so beautiful. Look at all of the little artwork on all the buildings. They're all different, but all painted the same colors. Here's the big great walls of Old Sana'a. It's so beautiful. Lots of cool older towers there along the rocks. The beautiful gate again. It's so pretty. And like it said, 41 mosques within this area. We'll look at the size of it in a second. And look how it just sprawls out. It's so, so beautiful. Little farm there. Looks like a rainy day. Look at the moon rising up for the old buildings. This is a gorgeous shot, but I don't think that's in Sana'a technically. But yeah, it's so pretty. Almost looks like paper crafts or like a really intricate cake with frosting or something. It doesn't look real, but it is. It's just so beautiful. Little reservoir there, some cars, a big beautiful mosque. We'll look at that in a second. That's, I believe, the biggest mosque in, I know it's the biggest mosque in Sana'a. Probably the biggest mosque in Yemen. So let's take a look. We're going to zoom in here. And we're going to find the old city. Here we go. The old city. Which again is just... There's the big mosque. Hold on a second. Just more beautiful shots of the old structures there. Oh, it's prayer time there. But yeah, we've seen enough pictures, even though I could look at them all day. It's so beautiful. But when you look close, you can see just like the urban sprawl of buildings here, buildings there. There's little museums inside. And then you go to the more modern part of Yemen. Let's look over here, and you can see a lot more streets, organization, little green spots of parks and sites, and much newer buildings. And then you go to the old city again. You can see the green areas, but just the sprawl, the chaos of it is so pretty. Let's see if we can find any cool... Nope, not there. There are a couple of museums I found. Yeah, handicraft museum. Because I wanted to look inside some of these. Look at these beautiful necklaces and the daggers, which the name will come to me in a minute. Goodness. I'll throw it on the screen if I don't remember it. But, yeah, these daggers that when the men come of age, they wear on their belt. Oh, I can't remember it at the moment. Beautiful shops inside. Look at that little tea set and serving tray. The doors entering the shopping area. He looks friendly. Beautiful stones, decor gorgeous little shops inside. So pretty, isn't it? It's a beautiful place. There's a big mosque there, you can tell. Let's see if there's pictures of it. Mosque in Sana'a, Yemen. Oh, very nice. Kind of pales in comparison to the mosque that I'm about to show you, though. Look how beautiful the sunset. Oh, this architecture is so lovely, all the little details. So nice. Spend some time for prayers there. So that is the old city. The other part of Sana'a I want to show you is the more official area where we can see the Grand Mosque, the Al Salah Mosque. Does it say right there if it's the largest in Yemen? Yes, it is the largest in Yemen. Look how beautiful. There's almost something kind of Taj Mahal about it, isn't there? Kind of on the grand scale. Look at all of this detail. And it's so colorful too. Usually you see fancy mosque, there's a color scheme of like 2 or 3 colors. You can see all kinds of colors in here. And in the carpet, and the columns, it's so pretty. The outside too, this kind of fresco with these big columns and archways and the details on the doors and along the walls here. Even the pretty chandeliers are super detailed. It's pretty with the rainbow. And this, it's giving me like Taj Mahal vibes, even though the Taj Mahal is like a mausoleum / mosque. This is just a pure mosque. I think it's like the grand scale and size of it is just so pretty. All the columns, or the minarets I should say, decorated all the way up to the top. Jambias, that's what they're called. It just hit me. The knives, the daggers that they wear, they're called jambias. Whew, I remembered. I don't know how that came to me just now. It's a gorgeous building. Look at the sky there, pretty. And there's this big roadway courtyard. Oh my gosh, like the big dome. Look at those details. And again, all of the colors. There's so many colors in there. I think it's beautiful. It reminds me of doing those mandala artworks where sometimes I color those and I don't have a plan. I just pick a color and just go around. That's what it reminds me of. Like I don't plan a color scheme in advance. I just go in the moment. The big outdoor area as well, and the big street that we're about to look at. They would have big parades. He's riding his horse there. That's fun. There, that's what it looks like, the jambia. The swords that the men wear, which were originally made out of rhino horns. They're obviously not anymore, but they still retain the shape. Men in Yemen and Oman wear those. Big courtyard outside, all lit up at night. Oh, and all green, maybe for maybe Ramadan or some holiday. So outside is the big square where they would host big parades. Look at that. Hopefully this is peaceful. I'm not sure, but it certainly looks very organized and peaceful. They've got like big signs they're carrying too past the mosque. Setting up for something there. Another big parade with a bunch of Yemeni flags going down, and you can see that there's places for spectators to watch the parades too. Rainy day. Very rainy day. Very rainy night. And yeah, big political parade there. Yeah, so this is kind of like the main spot where the big events would happen. Look at that crowd, my goodness. Absolutely massive. Look at her running. And he's brought his horse too. It must be a common thing to just ride your horse around these parts of town. Now this is either after a wild moment, or maybe they're just deconstructing it after a parade, or it might have been an attack. I don't know. Either way, it's kind of a scary picture, right? I don't know which one it was. Look at the sweets. Cute. And another big rally happening there. So yes, Sana'a is a very Busy city. There's lots of other things you can check out. I didn't mention Queen Arwa. There's Queen Arwa University. There's a couple of beloved queens in Yemen's history. She ruled at one point from Sana'a. I think she's like the most beloved one, to be honest, besides the Queen of Sheba. But there are a lot of other places to explore. Those are just the ones I wanted to show you the most. Alright, let's check out the Amazon water park. Hold on. I love me a good water park. Well, I was looking at this because I was looking at this water park being like, what does this mean for the water shortage? How long could you sustain a water park in a place with a water shortage? But it looks like they've got some cool arcades or something. Yeah, it's looking pretty empty there. But nevertheless, cool indoor play place. I always say, I used to do, before COVID, I would do indoor children's parties at play places. Look at those fun slides. So Google always wants to show me indoor play places. So, nice selfie. Yeah. They always pop up. And I love water parks. I love swimming. It's one of my favorite things to do. So it definitely wants to show me water parks all the time. So anyway, that's where we're going to end it for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to end it on this gorgeous picture here. If you enjoyed this style of content, please consider subscribing. This is an ongoing series on my channel. Next, we're going to be heading over to Brazil. We're going from a place, or a district I should say, that's 100% city to a place that's 10% city. So be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. I do hope that you found this video relaxing and educational, and I hope that you have a good